In this topic, we'll talk about provisioning data. Now, in other parts of this course, we've talked about the challenges of building new development test databases and the need for data. Developers need test data, test systems need test data, load systems need test data, performance needs test data, security needs test data, and everybody wants test data. It makes their life easier. Now, without data, most of my code works really well. It's really fast. But it's not a great test of the database code itself or the database system. We want to ensure that all of our environments have data. All of our databases have some valid data in it that we can use. Now, we've talked about test data in other modules, but here we want to look about how we get data into the systems. In DevOps, it's important that we simulate our environments well. They're consistent. They look the same. We want to make sure that that happens here. We really have two issues. One of them is that environments need different amounts of data, right? Some need more, some need less. And the other one is that we need to make sure that we've got the right kind of data. Now, our provisioning process needs to handle this. It needs to perhaps do data in two different ways, and it certainly may need to do additional processing of data. So let's look at a couple places where it's very important to provision certain test data. Let's start with performance testing. Ideally, we always want to perform some sort of load test before we deploy code. And when we're doing this, we typically want the actual production data. Now, we may need to mask it or clean it because of data sensitivity or data security reasons. But really, we want to make sure we have roughly what we have in production. But we don't want it to be exactly the same size because by the time we deploy changes, production will have grown. Or certainly, by the time our users get to use our new code and they've been working with it for a while, production is larger. So in our performance test, we typically want 1.2 to 1.5 times production data size. You may even want more if you deploy less frequently. Now, often we can generate this load easily once we've provisioned the database because we don't really care about what data it is. And often we can do something like an insert select to copy existing data back into the system. Mostly create some duplicate data, might increase the load a bit, but that's okay. We don't really care. We're just trying to get lots of data in there so that we have more information to test with. For example, if we have a system that has orders and order line items, we might double the number of line items for every order, which changes our statistics a little bit, but it's close enough that allows us to really test the additional load with the data. Again, we can do the same thing with logging data, other types of data that just exist in large tables and we often don't care about the specifics. Now, duplicating data with new primary keys or existing primary foreign keys is usually the easiest way to provision a large and production system once we've got that production-sized data load. And again, we may just do a backup and restore to provision this production data. We may use something like a SAN snapshot that creates this performance testing environment. But however we want to do it, we want to make sure that we have a process in place, some scripts that we can use to increase the size of the production data. As with everything we do in development in the DevOps world, version control our scripts, make sure we understand exactly what's happening. Now, if masking is needed, we need to hide data. We want to apply it here before we allow developers or somebody else to access these systems. As much as possible, we want our performance testing systems to be fully automated when they're created without humans having to go view the data or manipulate it or do anything else. That way our masking systems, our security systems are all in place before humans have the chance to work with the data. The other place that's important for provisioning data is in development or in our initial testing environment such as QA. We've talked about generating test data in previous modules. And the method we choose depends on what's important for us. Do we do it randomly? Do we take something out of production? Do we do a hybrid where we build our own curated set? However we want to do it here, we want it to be scriptable so that we can, again, automatically generate and provision this smaller environment. When you have a new developer start, we want to give them an environment that looks like everybody else's. We want to run a test, we want it to be the same way. If a developer creates a new code branch with a simple command, we want it to automatically create a new database that adds all the code and it loads the database with that test data set. Again, this can be generated, it can be a backup restore or something else. We have a lot of companies that have been working on technology to make provisioning data easier, precisely because of this problem. It's very difficult to do this. Backup and restore can require a lot of resources, snapshots can be difficult, and the key to making this work well in the DevOps world is we want our data provisioning process to be very, very easy. If it's not the case, developers will tend to work in an ad hoc manner, either not use enough data, kind of create their own random data, and they won't really bother to ensure that the data set actually will exercise their code as much as it should be for the needs of their particular environment.